Good morning and welcome to the Indiana University Kelley School of Business's Worldwide Roundtable in this new semester and new year. My name is Levon Schlegel and I am the Executive Director of the Institute for International Business here at the Kelley School. Thank you all for joining us this morning as we begin this third series of the Worldwide Roundtables. During these sessions, we have distinguished speakers in Europe, ASEAN, specifically Indonesia and Thailand, and Mexico and Latin America, all gathering to explore the ideas of shared value in business. And as always, it takes a global team to put together these events. I would like to thank Professor Tim Fort from the Kelley School, Jen Goyens and Allison DeWitt from the Kelley Office of Development and Engagement, Roy Hooper from the IU Alumni Association, Molly Fisher and Lucero Gillian at the IU Mexico Gateway, Andrea Adam Moore at the IU Europe Gateway, and Ali Batten, Director of the IU Global Gateways. I also want to thank Rob Clendening, Rebecca Salerno, and George Lahakis from Kelley Marketing, and Jeff Poland at IIB. And finally, I would like to thank Tim Smith, also from IIB, without whom this project would not have happened. As I mentioned, today's discussions will explore the idea of shared value in business. In these three very different sessions, we explore what shared value is in the traditional sense of the phrase, but also how business should see their shared responsibility in what has become a very interconnected world. No longer should any business leader live in the vacuum of not understanding the broader impact of their business choices and decisions. They should want to make sure they are more than just good caretakers of their business, making a positive contribution to their communities, large and small. With so many business leaders taking on this challenge, the ways in which they make a positive contribution are many, both socially and economically. Each panel in our series has taken a different look at the topic and explored the impact business is having on what is unmistakably a much smaller and more interrelated world. I am pleased to introduce today's moderator, Peter Boonjaran. Born and raised in Indiana, Peter has been involved in building connections between the IU community and Thailand for more than 20 years. After graduating from the Kelley School of Business with his bachelor's degree in marketing in the year 2000, Peter settled in Bangkok to pursue a career in finance. There, he quickly found his niche as a bridge between East and West, connecting investors from the United States and Europe with Thai keynote speakers such as CEOs, government officials, and the members of the Thai royal family. As president of the IU Alumni Association's Thailand chapter since 2010, Peter worked to reinvigorate IU's alumni base of more than 1,300 members that represent a broad range of sectors and professions, including government, law, education, medical, and health sciences, dentistry, business, arts and culture, social work, and philanthropy. In his role as director of the IUAA Gateway, Peter serves as a system-wide resource in support of the activities and initiatives of IU faculty, students, staff, and alumni in Thailand and throughout the ASEAN region. To date, Peter has provided support for overseas study programs, helped secure externships for IU law students at Thai-based firms, facilitated visits by IU deans to Thai partner institutions to develop exchange programs, initiated a Thai textile art exhibit on refugees at the IU Mathers Museum, and met with women leaders in business and society. As Director of Development in Asia, Peter inspires international alumni to connect and stay engaged with IU's global efforts. Peter, thank you for serving as today's moderator, and thank you to our panelists for your contributions and participation in this important global discussion.
Thank you, Levon. There's so much dynamic IU and Kelley energy here in ASEAN and Southeast Asia, and it's wonderful to be part of it and learn about what all our students and alumni are doing between Bloomington, Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand. And today we have two of the most impactful names in the Kelley ASEAN family who have done so much in their careers and for the community. First, we have Bambang Panutomo from Indonesia. currently residing in Singapore. He is founder of the Malacca Trust and Batavia Prosperindo. Upon graduation, Bambang began his career in investment banking with Chase Manhattan Bank. He left Chase to become the CEO of Bank Bira, which he built into the leading investment bank in Indonesia that later partnered with GE Capital. In 1999, Bambang founded his own financial group under the name of Batavia Prosperindo, made up of the largest government asset manager, non-government asset manager in Indonesia, a financing company with over 75 branches, an insurance segment with 22 branches, and a logistic company. In 2014, DEG KfW, Germany's sovereign development bank, became Bambang's partner, as all of his businesses operate based on the United Nations Principle for Responsible Investment with world-class environmental, social, and government standards. Bambang is currently launching a high-tech sustainable indoor farming company, which will be ready for production this quarter. And his BP Pudili Foundation has built a school for 600 underprivileged students, providing scholarships for families that cannot afford to send their children to school. Over in the US, on the East Coast, we have Patrick Decker. Patrick Decker is the president and CEO of Xylem, a leading global water technology provider with more than 16,000 employees in more than 150 countries. They provide innovation solutions to the most complex water challenges. Under Patrick's leadership, Xylem has expanded its portfolio of smart water infrastructure solutions and advanced data analytics capabilities for water and energy services. Visibly, Patrick has expanded the company's corporate citizenship initiative by engaging with its global workforce, by continuing its work to provide safe water resources for many of the world's vulnerable communities. Prior to Xylem, Patrick was CEO of Harsco, a global industrial service company, in addition to Tyco International, which exposed him to Brazil and the Middle East, and Bristol Myers Squibb Company, which brought him to Latin America and Asia. Again, the ASEAN global community, Kelley community, is really strong here in Southeast Asia. Patrick was actually here in Thailand, in northern Thailand last month, and Bambang looks to be visiting here again in early February. Since we all can't be together at the same time in Thailand together, we'll be here on the global webinar to discuss your work, particularly for the community. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Okay, so Patrick, maybe let's start to better understand your work and that you do with your company in terms of as a change maker for society. So I think we'd like to better understand what's the shared value and what's the value that you provide to your stakeholders. So you know, as I mentioned, your organization operates across the world, 150 companies with over 1,600 employees. How do you get, you know, each of the different units from around the world to buy in and engage with Xylem's mission to be a change maker for society? How do you operate that?
No, it's a great question. I think that on one hand, some people would say, well, that's pretty easy and obvious, Patrick. You're leading a water technology company, so you know the world needs water, and we've got huge challenges around the world. So it must be easy to get all your folks aligned around this. And, the reality is, whether you're in the water business or whether you're doing other things, I think it does come down to having a shared purpose. We spend a lot of time as a board, as a leadership team, in our own engagement surveys with our employees around the world, really focusing in on this notion of sustainability. And I know sustainability is an overused word these days, but we talk about sustainability with a big S. In other words, how do you build an enterprise that is going to stand the test of time and be around to be relevant And what I found is that everybody wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves. You know, they want to be motivated by this real sense of purpose. You know, they want to be proud when they go home to their family and their loved ones and their friends and be able to talk about the work they're doing. Investors care because I think, you know, anytime that you are, you have a purpose, you are using your skills, talents, technologies to solve the world's biggest problems and challenges, that typically means there is money flowing into those parts of the economy. And when you bring technology to that, that means you're probably going to have a higher growth rate. You're going to have better returns, better margin profile. And so investors like it because they want to know that they're investing where the money's going. But at the end of the day, it's got to be as much in your heart. You know, as you both know, it's what you do when nobody else is around or watching. You know, people can smell whether a leader is speaking the truth or whether he or she is speaking BS. And so, you know, you've got to be able to walk this and really show people that it's in your heart.
All right, yeah. So let's turn it over to Bang Bang. Bang Bang. So you've successfully launched 2 major financial groups. So after a successful career in you know, building financial services from scratch, could you share with us, you know, what is your current mission and how you seek to provide the benefit to society, and how you transition from a career in financial services to a change maker for society?
Well, it was an evolution, actually. It doesn't happen overnight. We started our business as a startup back in 1999, right after financial crisis. We started with only 6 employees to start it with, and currently we have about 1,200 employees across the board there. When we were small, starting with 6 employees in the first 1 to 2 years growing up, it starts as an evolution because it goes like when you say ESG consists of environmental and social, right? We started with the social first for our own in-house, because at the time, Asian financial crisis, everybody have limited pocket, limited saving, and a lot of the employees suddenly, sometimes they have emergency cases. So we develop in-house what we call it a cooperative, that we put some saving together among the employees, and then we lend to whoever needed at that point in time. And those activities grow internally. And once the company reaches a certain level after 4 to 5 years, then everybody becoming well off and they don't need that kind of facility anymore. So, but the DNA was built inside the organization. And the employees started talking about, hey, why don't we do something social to the society instead of only for our organization? That's when we come up with, you know, starting a foundation, building up school, that kind of things for the underprivileged student. And the evolution continue from social impact into environmental, because we see that the country social situation is degrading. We got a lot of air pollution. People got sick because of the air is not too good, that kind of things. Then we start thinking about ourselves. How could we in the financial services convert our company into environmentally responsible? And then we look into several, I mean, because the DNA is there, we want to do something. And it's driven from bottom to top. And a lot of our employees start talking, doing their research and everything. They see that there is a good standard that is being introduced on what we call it UNPRI, United Nations PRI, stand for Principle for Responsible Investment. So we can do investment responsibly with the responsibility mind, thinking about how we select the investment. So it started with our leasing company first, that we don't want our heavy equipment to be used in the protected area. So we implemented, you know, putting the GPS into the machine that when the lessor bring it into the protected area, we are notified. The same thing too on the asset management company. We invest only in a company that principally complying with the ESG standard, and that pays off. So not only because we want to do it voluntarily, but commercially and economically benefited to our company as well. So that's how the way it started.
Okay, so that actually leads into our next question of how you decided to do this good for community and your choices on what to pursue, which is the second topic for today's discussion. But so now that we got into how your mission originated and the social in terms of the school, could you maybe talk about your current initiative with the agriculture, the high-tech agriculture, and how that fits into who you are and how that fits into the community?
Okay, let me go a bit deeper on how the way we want to discipline ourselves in implementing this ESG, environmental, social, and governance principle into our company. I would like to cover this because sometimes we ourselves is not disciplined enough. Initially we got excited, and then the standard dragging and then becoming lower. So what we did is that in 2014, we invited a third-party investor in our company, which is DEG KfW. It's a DFI, a Development Financial Institution, owned by the government of Germany. And they are very particular about ESG, and we have to implement the ESG in a very disciplined manner. Means every 12 months they will come and see the compliance and the audit and that kind of things. Yeah. And doing that, they decided, because we started first back then, and we are one of the earliest in Indonesia. And then they say, okay, it's good, I'm coming in. So they bought 13% share in our company, and they start implementing a disciplinary implementation of this ESG. And that's go on. So what happened is that it's quite dynamic. Everybody think the paradigm completely changed. Then everybody think that whatever we do, it has to be done in such a way that is environmentally responsible, socially responsible, and it pays off. And it turned out that we have a lot of clients who invested in our asset management are keen to do it because we are ESG compliance. So what happened as the company expanded, then we always want to find a new project that is ESG related. Then it comes the COVID, and Singapore start talking about 30-30, 30% locally produced for 200 the year of 2030. So I said to myself, hey, why don't we do something in Indonesia? Because Indonesia is still importing a lot of fruits, which is because the fruits produced domestically are not good quality. So for the middle up population, they start importing fruits. And some of the daily consumption are still being imported. That if I can do something that is productive, then and environmentally responsible, then it will be good for the country. So we decided to do some study and end up that we can build a greenhouse indoor farming that is the productivity is 6 times and comparing to outdoor farming. And we will use the recycled water, no pesticide, because it's a closed environment indoor, that kind of things. And we decided to do it. And it started, we built in October last year, and it will start production this month.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Patrick, for your business, I mean, you've been a CEO at Xylem for about 8 years now, and your organization is very visibly in support of the company in the community. How did the journey, this current journey, begin? I mean, was it already instilled in the company, and when you came in, how did you enhance that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Peter. so the history of the company, very briefly, this was a collection of businesses that were part of a former company called ITT Corporation. And so the decision was made well before I joined to spin out, this part of the business assets that were focused on the water sector. But there was really no common identity amongst the businesses, the employees across the organization. And so I came on board about 2 years after the separation occurred. And I would say, if anything, when I first got here, morale was quite low. I think that, anytime you spin out a business, you go through a lot of tumultuous times and becoming a public company and all the kind of extra work that goes into that for people. And so I actually had a lot of work to do when I first got here to really bring in this sense of purpose and to make sure that it didn't come across as either self-serving or it's a feel-good kind of thing. And that took a while, for me to assemble my leadership team, get the right strategy in place, own the strategy in terms of how we were going to create value. I think we got a little bit lucky in that, we were doing things that are now, called ESG long before there was ESG, because I just feel that it's the right thing to do. I think it ultimately, when I talked about sustainability earlier, Peter, to me, here are the great challenges the world's facing around water. By 2050, which may seem like it's a long time from now, but basically any students that are listening in and watching this, by the time you're my age, will be there. And it'll happen a lot faster than what you think. By 2050, it's estimated that 25% of the world's population will be facing absolute water scarcity. Right now in the US, one of the wealthiest countries on the planet, those people who make the lowest, 20% of our people that make the lowest wages in the US, that bottom 20%, the water bill today can represent up to 20% of their net take-home pay. So affordability is a big deal. Resilience, climate change, weather patterns has huge impact on water infrastructure around the world. Where I'm going with this, Peter, is this whole sense of purpose is to say, we've got to build an enterprise, and not just within Xylem, but a network of partners that are going to be around by 2050 to be able to tackle these challenges. And the only way to do that is to be able to attract top talent. And I go back to where I started, and that is, I believe everybody wants to work somewhere where they believe there's a higher purpose than just themselves. And so it's a never-ending task, because as we all know, you got to make a bunch of short-term decisions that aren't always nice and easy, and they're hard to do. But people need to know that they're doing it for a greater cause. I want to add to what Ben was saying, and that is, I think also people in any organization want to know that their leaders are being held accountable and are being incentivized to deliver on real hard metrics that measure elements of ESG. A big piece of my incentive compensation personally is tied to our external ESG ratings. We get audited every year. We use different indices to measure that. And it's part of my short-term and long-term compensation. And I think all my colleagues around the world, they like to know that I have to walk the talk and I'm being measured accordingly.
Okay. Yeah, that leads into the next question about how do you get your employees engaged, and how do you kind of drive this workforce from your, let's say, day-to-day job to a community job. So I think we first met 3 or 4 years ago, and I thought you had worked for a nonprofit organization. From social media, it's constantly about the projects that you do across the world, and that's granted because you have so much coverage. So I didn't realize you were actually an industrial firm. So could you kind of share how you balance that? I mean, obviously you have to keep the focus on the key core operations, and I mean, clearly you value the community work and service, but how do you balance that, and what, you know, how does that work with each other?
Yeah, I think I don't have the answer for that, because, you know, it is a never-ending push. I mean, I'll be very blunt here, as I am with my team all the time. We've got a program called Watermark, which is our signature, philanthropy program. And it's taken 8 years since I've been here to help our colleagues around the world understand that Watermark is not a project. You know, it's a mindset, it's a mentality as to how do we give back. It doesn't matter to me so much what any one person is doing in terms of a given project. I just want them to be engaged. You know, I want them to get involved in some way with their communities, because I think that, you know, during the hardest of times for any business, the way you get the hearts and minds of people is to get their heads, their hearts, their hands engaged, and to really feel they can make a difference and an impact. One of my frustrations, you know, it's a half empty, half full kind of comment here. We pride ourselves on the fact that we shattered all kinds of records internally and externally this last year in terms of how many hours our colleagues around the world and our customers and channel partners put in to Watermark. But here's what frustrates me. We still had 15%. So everybody on my team celebrating, we had 85% participation. That's great. Why are the other 15% not participating? So we still have work to do, to help all of our colleagues understand that this is not just a privilege, it's an expectation that when you sign up for the payroll of Xylem, it's not just deliver your numbers in a quarter or a year. It's so much bigger than that, because it's also about creating awareness of the water challenges around the world and the fact that solutions exist to these problems. So it's a combination of work, but also it feels good when you do it. And that's why you see me being so promotional on social media, is just to let people know that, yes, you can do well by doing good. You know, it's not all about for-profit. I mean, that will take care of itself when you have the right strategy, technology, and the most talented people on the team. You'll deliver your numbers.
Okay, so it's really about the team being capable to drive the profit and drive the community. So okay, great, yes, thank you. Bam Bang, and for your diverse community projects, and these aren't minor feats, these are actually large missions that you have engaged in. How do you rally the troops? I mean, how do you get people around you to support your mission to accomplish, you know, what you're seeking to, your goals?
Well, actually, like I previously mentioned, this is all about teamwork. It's not from me as the founder that pushing the idea to the bottom, but it's actually in reverse. It's already in the DNA of the bottom going up, and they are the one who initiate everything, right? And I'm the one who helped them to shape it up into the right direction and the right structure, which I briefly mentioned that after we really doing it, then we want to discipline ourselves, standardize ourselves, and that becoming like an addiction. And once we are doing that, then we announce it to our business partner. On the asset management, we tell to our institutional investor, to our bank distributor, and indeed they're becoming very excited, right? So when they're becoming excited, then they say, wow, good. I'm going to increase my asset allocation to you more because you are ESG compliant and you are one of the pioneers. And that will put pressure to the employee to outperform and continuously want to be at the edge of the industry. Because definitely once we become ESG compliance, everybody else want to follow, right? But then we want to be ahead than the other competitor. So it's like we are running a bike and we have to run it faster. And one of the reasons it becoming good, you do something good, but you are also commercially compensated. The company perform better, and the employee can see the result. Yeah. And in fact, indeed, last year we just launched a product that we call it a mutual fund that dedicated with thematic is on the renewable energy, because now the renewable energy, the growth rate is very high. And when we launch the product and the investment is outperforming the traditional value investment, then people start to realize, wow, if you put the money into the ESG portfolio, it outperformed. Well, we still have a short history, 12 months, right? But we believe that a lot of the industry in the market are going to go toward environmentally friendly, renewable energy to reduce pollution, that kind of thing. So the most important things is commercially, economically compensated and rewarding to the employee who are doing that. And it makes them more excited, it incentivizes them, and that's how do we make it happen.
You know, Bemeng, I think just picking up on a thread that you laid out there, there is something to this, Peter, around creating a flywheel of momentum. And it's hard to say when it happens, but you reach this kind of tipping point where it becomes so obvious to our colleagues as part of our teams that this is the right thing to do, and it's fun to do. It makes work more fun, more meaningful, more purposeful, and it becomes part of the DNA of the organization. So then you become that much more of a magnet for talent to want to join your team and your cause. We're all in a war for talent. We're not immune to that within Xylem, but it just gives you one more advantage when you're out there looking for top talent. And we all know that, with the top talent, you deliver better outcomes to your customers. It all goes together. It's just getting it started is the hard part, because I think that sometimes people feel that they're just being lied to or it's just being made up along the way. And that's the part that takes work and takes a bit of patience and fortitude. I love what Bemeng said in terms of the investment side. These ESG investors are not lovey-dovey. I mean, this is not some feel-good thing. I mean, the reason why a number of these ESG funds have outperformed the market is because they go where the money is flowing, and that is these big, audacious challenges that are facing the planet, where technology or innovative solutions can be brought to bear. You are going to outperform in terms of growth, in terms of margins. I mean, there is a financial return associated with this. And some of the toughest conversations that we have with our investors are with ESG funds. Even though, we've gone from 3 years ago now, only about 12% of our shareholdings were in the hands of ESG. Right now, it's about a third. And that's the kind of value creation that you see when you put hard commitments out there that can be audited and measured and are meaningful, and they've got to be tied in with your business. It can't just be some standalone set of factors you're measuring.
And I want to add something in here. How do we can create this kind of dynamic into the society and into the industry? So when we are the first asset manager to be ESG compliance, and then a year or 2 years later, it was 2014, and then it took momentum 2015, 2016. A lot of the institutional managers, especially the foreign insurance company like Allianz, Generali, and so on, increase the asset allocation to us. Then our competitor look into it and they say, gee, if I don't follow Batavia, then they will lose their market share. Then they start implementation of ESG on their own organization and bring the third, the fourth, the fifth, and now probably about 10 to 20% of the industry players start looking into this ESG. So it gives the flavor to the entire industry.
I think it's a great point in that, the whole notion of, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. I mean, I think, we see much of the same in the water sector. When you look at other water companies that are out there, whether they be competitors of ours or partners of ours, there's a common theme emerging now. A lot of the slides, a lot of the websites are beginning to kind of look similar along the way. And I know, my team a couple of years ago was getting frustrated that we're doing all this work and other people are just now like, whitewashing or blue washing, their materials. And my comment was, as long as they're doing it from a place of sincerity, that's good. That's good. We're shining a light on a cause and a purpose here. And, our tagline is let's solve water. And I always say, remove the apostrophe and it says, let us solve water. We can't do it alone. I mean, you can't do what you're doing alone. We need society to join forces here. And so this is all good. The fact that we're even having this conversation in front of this network it's a really, really good thing.
Okay. So that's actually the next segment that we'd like to discuss. But now that we've really covered, your passion and your organization's drive for the community, we're gonna ask the audience to submit questions for the Q&A as we transition into the next segment. We'll talk about more of the community and kind of the peers. But so the audience listening would like to submit any questions that we can discuss in the Q&A section when we complete in about 10 minutes. Please go ahead and submit your questions into the Q&A box. But we'll go ahead and move into this next segment, which follows to this about our peers. And, what does this shared value creation look like in your region, within your peers, within your industry? And let's dig deeper into how, you mentioned that other people have been copying what you do, but how do you keep these peers in mind, and do you look as a leader for them to build onto you, as you mentioned? So maybe Bambang, could you maybe discuss and share about a little bit deeper about ESG in Indonesia and how it's developed over the past 6-7 years, and are there different examples that you're looking to also include from what you see from peers, and what peers are kind of really focusing from you as a role model? So could you please share some examples about the others that follow your example?
Well, there is two elements to it, right? When we talk about ESG, one is the element from the morality. Morally is right and is feeling good. And the second element, which is quite important also, is commercially and economically rewarding. Yeah. So when it was started on my own organization, and later on also what I see in Indonesia, that people initially started with morality and feeling good. But that is only the first step, because if it is not commercially and economically rewarding, then that feeling good will die off, right? Ultimately. Yeah. Now, what happened is that because there is a peer pressure already ongoing, people starting to do it, and if we don't do it, then we will be behind, and it's growing. So assuming like on me, as an asset manager, we want to invest in ESG mutual fund team. If I don't have company that is ESG compliance, I cannot do it, right? So now the market start to the company in the country start to where the company is listed start to talk about ESG as well. So then they will be picked up as one of the favorite stock, and the number is increasing and it's growing. Yeah, and initially they do with something simple, but ultimately they want to outbid the other. So they expanded the scope of ESG. So now the financial dynamic drive the ESG compliance more than than feeling good and morally responsible. And ultimately, the faster it goes, like a flywheel, the better off it will be, and the impact will be felt accordingly across the board.
And Patrick, in your region and in your industry, I mean, how do you view this value creation among your peers, and how do you kind of operate within this ecosystem, that you mentioned earlier a bit?
Yeah, I think one of the things about the water sector is that it's incredibly fragmented. It's obviously a huge piece of the economy, and I think all of us that play in the water space today, we realize that the more we can create awareness of not just the challenges, but also of the opportunities and the technologies and solutions that already exist, that's a good thing, because more and more communities will allocate resources to address what we believe to be the single most important factor facing the planet. Without water, you have nothing. And so I think we do a pretty good job of working together in various forums and panels around the world. While yes, we compete for capital, we compete for investors, we compete commercially. I think that it makes us all better in terms of what we do. I think the sustainability, the very specific metrics that we put out in our latest sustainability report, which we published a few months ago, which has our new goals for 2025. They really line up with each one of the SDGs, the Sustainability Development Goals that are out there, not just number 6, which is around water, but it really ties into a number of the other SDGs. And the fact that we've been even more specific on, for example, how many liters or gallons of water do we help treat around the world each year? How many people have we helped lift out of poverty as a result to access to clean, safe water? Being sharper around those things, that's come as a result of our peers and competitors leaning in and being more specific. So it's a good thing. Likewise, in our case, oftentimes our competitors are also customers. And vice versa. There's a lot of overlap that goes on. So, we almost have to play nice because, you don't want to burn bridges. And I've always said, any strategy predicated on the assumption that your competitors are lazy or stupid is not usually a winning strategy. So we respect them, and I think we make each other better.
Okay. All right. Well, we have one last question that we had prepared. Again, if the audience has any Q&A questions, that we'll save it for the end of the session. But I think some of the key points and topics that both of you had mentioned throughout this session was many people from the workforce really want to be part of an organization that can really deliver its promise of sound ESG strategy. And I think so Patrick, you mentioned that what bothers you is that 15% that has not. Could you kind of expand on that a little bit? Like, what's your current view? Is your mission now to change that? And I mean, what's your strategy going forward in terms of enhancing your company's engagement?
Yeah, I mean, it's another analogy, just to put this in perspective. I'm sure that many that are listening in, or as they join the workforce over time, they'll be familiar with engagement surveys of our employees. And so we just did our last engagement survey. We do one every couple of years. We're now doing more rapid, pulse surveys. But this last one, the benchmark is if you get 75% of your workforce actually participating in responding to the survey, you're kind of top quartile. We got 90%. Doesn't mean it was all great feedback, but it meant that people really care and they want to get feedback. The analogy here with the ESG and the volunteerism is, I kept asking the question, who are the other 10% that didn't choose to actually participate in the survey? And so I'm always, I think as any leader, we have to make sure we're the ones challenging the team as to what's acceptable. I mean, at the end of the day, let's not pat ourselves in the back on how great the improvement was. We do some of that, but let's get down to brass tacks on who are the 10 or 15% that aren't there. The way we're doing that is it's got to be done anonymously. It cannot be a heavy hand for me. People cannot be kind of forced or coerced to do things. I just really want to make sure we understand what the root cause is. Is it an issue of time? Is it an issue of awareness? What is it that's getting in the way? And the only way to do that is to listen, is to really listen to our folks and understand and not judge them based upon whether they have participated or they haven't. It's easier said than done. And so I don't have an easy, maybe Ben, maybe you have an answer that I can put in place here. It's hard across this many countries because some of it's cultural as well. But I'm a big believer that the flywheel, the momentum is going in the right direction here. So we will get to 100%. We just won't get there as fast as I probably want us to. And I think a big part of this also, Peter, is role modeling. It's when people see me in social media or we have our own internal networking platform. It's a Facebook type platform. And the more people can see me being visible and my leadership team being visible on, again, hands-on projects out in the field, doing real stuff with our time, then they say, one, if they have the time to do it, maybe I do. And two, we show them, we're giving them the license to take the time to go do things in their community.
Okay, and for Bang, do you have any thing to add to that on that? Those have yet to engage and what you might, how you view about that, and how do you, going forward, you might help bring them into the circle?
Well, I think I take it more naturally. I don't think we can achieve 100%, but we try to increase the participant among all the employees, staff, and management up to the maximum level. But then we have to do a balance, between economic incentive that we build into the KPI of the employee performance analysis every year. The KPI is there, it's very clear. Because when they achieve that KPI as an organization, we achieve our KPI and that will be financially rewarding. Then we pass on the reward to them accordingly, right? But besides an economic reward, also the moral feeling good reward has to be there, because that will become like a bonding into their DNA even stronger. So that's the reasons we built a foundation. We call it Batavia Prosperindo Peduli Foundation. Peduli means care, PP Care Foundation. So we built a school for the underprivileged student, and we have currently about 600 students. So every year we have a graduate of about 70 to 80 students, and we share it to all the employees. The company allocate a certain percentage of the profit into this foundation, but the employees are open to chip in what we call it a parent's adoption. So they can adopt some of these children by helping to subsidize their expenses. So there is a moral bonding there. And fortunately, there are quite a lot of our employees participating in the program. And they can see it. When the graduation comes, they're becoming very excited. Our employees quite excited to look, we help 80 students, hopefully, because graduated from our school, they will have a better life. So that will be a moral feeling good. So the combination of two, the KPI that have an economic incentive and the moral feeling good, that will keep the momentum going and increase the participation among the employee. But I'm sure we cannot reach 100%, but we try to do it as much as possible.
And I think it's also the more that we are able to create experiences for individuals, and then they become the broadcast of that. I mean, I think back, Peter, to a story that I know you're familiar with, and that was when we were involved in the Thai cave rescue, with the soccer team up in Chiang Rai. It was only after the news came out that we were involved behind the scenes on that people saw that we had 5 of our colleagues that were on the ground there in the cave, kind of doing it when nobody else was, no fanfare, nobody else was talking about it. When that news broke across the organization, that was one of the turning points for us in terms of engagement, because people could go home and feel really proud about what we were doing, and it had nothing to do with money. All it had to do was do the right thing and bring our technical expertise to bear. And I think that's another opportunity to tie in the talents and skills of our people, unleashing that within their communities, as opposed to, write a check or it's a separate volunteerism kind of project. It's no, we've got, all of us have incredibly talented people on our teams. Let them unleash that talent within their communities in whatever way is important to them.
Okay, well, we have a question from the audience in the Q&A, and that actually kind of follows up on that last point. There is, what are you looking for in the next generation of students and employees that will help your organization continue make the world a better place for us to live? So, I mean, both of your organizations are currently active. Do you view any different type of students, employees coming into your organization that will help drive or change your path for the better? Are there any skills that you're looking for?
Ben, Maggie, you go first.
Okay. Well, I believe that time flies quite fast, right? When I started my business, I was only 38. Now I'm 61. And I see the eagerness and the feeling of doing environmentally, socially responsible is higher on the younger generation than our generation. And indeed, we do recruitment every year, right? We do pruning. So the one that is not productive, we prune, and then we got the newcomer that is very dynamic. And I noticed that the newcomer who come to our organization even push it to a higher level, that beyond our imagination. They want to take it to the next level, to the next stage. And they also have a belief through education that they already passed, because they graduated in an era that the education now emphasizing ESG. Well, I was educated. They never talked about ESG before, right? And they read in the newspaper and they see the economic result and the need of really doing it. So I think what we call it, the flywheel is already running by itself. So I think that there's nothing to worry. Once we stop the flywheel, I mean, the world flywheel on the ESG cannot stop. It ran already and it will run faster. But if we ourselves stop, then that means we are dying. Our organization will die and cease to exist. And all the employees know this. And we have to be at the very edge, the very front in the industry, in this particular country, means in Indonesia, to be more dynamic, then we can outperform the rest. So it ran by itself.
Yeah, I would just offer up 2 things. I think certainly what's going to be critical for all of us is the challenges that we're trying to address are going to require a next level of innovation. And so, we speak a lot about this inside of Xylem, but we're not there yet in terms of me getting us where we want to. People still think of innovation as, R&D, engineering, a product, a technology, whereas innovation is as much solutions, business models, just new ways of doing things. And I think we've got to have fresh young minds coming into our workforce every day that are willing to challenge the status quo in the way we do things. And so that level of courage and open-mindedness is something that I know that we rate very high right now. Secondly is I think that what I would want to impose upon the audience that are students right now, or even early in career, is we only have so much time on this planet as we know this life to be for each of us. And, we tend to measure it in years. It tends to actually get measured probably in minutes and hours and days. It's a finite, and we don't even know what that is. The point is, have a purpose. What are we using our time together on this earth to do? And so I am always looking for anybody that joins Xylem at whatever level it is to come in with a passion, with a sense of purpose. And it always comes down to teamwork. Beming, I'm sure you feel the same way on this. A coach early on in my life said, Patrick, teamwork is not just you saying, I care as much about the team as I do myself. No, it's I care as much about every other member of the team that I do myself. And so having that kind of compassion coming into a workforce is really important, I think, to distinguish someone to be a true leader, in the future.
We have one final question from the audience. It's about using ESG scores or the actual impact. The question is, do you consider ESG scores is effective to measure impact outcomes? Is it more effective to measure quantifiable impact rather than capturing a more abstract and intangible impact like impact outcomes? So you guys have both mentioned, ESG scores, ESG in the industry. So, I mean, what do you take more to heart, the scores or the impact, and how do you best evaluate how your firm is performing?
Please, Patrick, you go ahead first.
Okay, I think it's we use a combination of the two. So we both from an incentive standpoint and in our sustainability report and our goals we put out, we focus very much on the actual impact that we're having. So, we've got a handful of signature goals that are measurable, they're auditable, and they're really tied into our business largely around water. But we also have, goals that are out there around diversity, representation, improvement of our engagement scores, et cetera. So they are auditable, verifiable, but they're about impact. We do focus on ratings. I mean, Sustainalytics, for example, is one that we certainly pay attention to. That really is more of just a gate check to make sure that what we're doing is being recognized by ESG rating agencies, but we don't hang our hat on that. So my incentive and my team's incentives, we do have a portion that is tied to specific deliverables in terms of business outcomes.
Well, on my end, you got like what Patrick were saying there is a different standard, right? You can use the UN standard, you can use the EU standard, you can use the US standard. For us, we use the UN standard because then it will be more widely accepted. But I also agree that it is not perfect. It will be continue being evaluated, the impact, because sometimes the formula is just being started and it developed as the industry is developing the environmental degradation go further, and the formula will be changed. But we are not the expert, so we leave it to the expert. How do we measure the impact? And we just follow that standard formula that they already implemented, and we hope that by using the best world practice on that formula, they continue evolving, adjusting the formula to get the best impact.
It's imperfect for all of us, but it's better to be measuring it, in any way, and then we'll get to better outcomes over time.
But in the case of social, we can see it directly. On the ESG environmental, we rely on the UNPRI. But on the social, because we have our own school, we see the graduate, 75 students graduated this year. That's the impact we can see it right away. But there's something that is within our control. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that was we covered many different points and clearly from your own experience. So that's great for sharing your work in the community. And we've come up to exactly our time allotment. We've finished this very fruitful and insightful session within our 60 minutes. So I think it's time to end the session here. Tim,
Thanks to both of you.
Thank you to Peter, to Timothy, and also Patrick for the
Likewise.
time.
Yes, and thank you to each of you for your wonderful thoughts shared and for inspiring us all to continue to do good. It's always the right thing to do, right? So on behalf of IIB and the Kelley School and all of us at IU, the Global Gateways and the Office of the Vice President of International Affairs, I want to thank each of you, Patrick, Bombong, for all you've shared this evening and this morning. And Peter, thank you so much for facilitating the discussion. All these proud IU graduates, right? We're really grateful for your insight, and thank you, and we encourage you to continue to do the good work globally.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you at the next session, and thank you for joining us. Have a great evening, great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.